We are live now. Go ahead. Yes, we can see your screen. Just a minute. L- yes, which we. We can see Anand, Mohammed, Anisha. Many people has joined from YouTube live.
data saying that what is my 20 regions or 20 products which are not providing me good sales, so what? So whenever you address the question, so what, that's where you are getting into the storytelling part. On the theoretical part, storytelling is nothing about, it just gives you a meaningful and a readable way of presenting the information. We are just further contextualizing or personalizing the existing information that we have on the report or dashboard. But then on a broader scale, we're addressing many more points about the data. We are providing more, say, personalization, contextualization to the user, and that creates a bigger impact. In fact, there are techniques where we generate the pre-attentive, say whenever the brain processes some information, right? We address that kind of way where we can just provide some pre-attentive signals to the brain so that they can grasp the information better and can recall better, right? Those are the components of storytelling, and we will be speaking about a lot of things very soon. I have a wonderful example which speaks about the difference between data storytelling and data visualization. I'll just touch the point quickly because there are many such examples, in fact. So if you see here, this one particular blog which I found on the blog.presentation company, and then say, I mean, you might have created some slide or maybe a dashboard like this, right? Which speaks about mobile trends in shopping. So we have a pie chart 1, pie chart 2, but it's kind of a simple pie chart, a simple presentation, and then here place an image. If I convert the same thing into a story, this is a little more impactful way of presenting the information. And the example goes on. Here we have huge data, but instead of presenting the huge data, we are just presenting the quick insight directly to the user, right? And there are so many such users. We are just adding more context. We are just using more information, more impact that we are creating through the use of symbols, images, backgrounds, and all. Okay, I'll be jumping into these things very soon. I'm moving back to my deck. And here we have the 4 basic fundamentals of storytelling. Now, whatever stories we have heard so far, whatever stories we have seen so far, I believe more or less they fall in these 4 categories only. Now, they are on the basis of these 4 fundamentals. The fundamentals are for sure the visuals, because we all correlate better to the visualizations, right? If you show me the data and at the same time if you show me a chart, it's easy for me to understand the chart better than the actual data. Then always a story has a purpose. It's been meant for a particular purpose. Then we have the narratives, and then we have the data. Now sometimes, I mean, these all are intersections. Sometimes you only have the purpose and the narrative. Say for example, books. Books are a very beautiful example where you don't have visuals not much visual, but then again you have a narrative. There's a king, there's a queen, and again the narrative goes on. And the narrative has a purpose, right? You read Chetan Bhagat book or you read APJ Abdul Kalam book. They both have a narrative and a purpose, right? Then sometimes you have just visuals along with the purpose. Say for example, you have some engineering blueprints or maps, flowcharts. All those are beautiful visualizations along with some purpose, but they have very less data. If I bring the data component also into this particular picture, then you must have seen infographics, you must have seen the static reports, dashboards. Those are the the examples where you have the visualization as well as the data. But again, some are more or less the narrative might be missing in such things, right? Because you just have infographic, you have some visuals, you have some data, you have some typography, some images, icons, but that may or may not serve a purpose, right? And then you have the newsletter business that falls into this particular intersection. Now, when we speak about storytelling in data, and then we are speaking about all these things in the context of reporting and dashboarding, right? I feel reports and the dashboards, irrespective of the tool, whether you create them on Power BI or you create them on Tableau or any other tool, I believe they have an intersection of all these 4. You create reports which engage the audience, which inform the audience, which entertain the audience at the same time. They provide insights, right? So a lot of things which you do with the reports, and they are meant for a particular purpose. They have great visualizations. They should have great narrative, and that's why we are in this particular discussion today. And obviously, the underlying thing is the data for all the stories, right? So each and every report and dashboard should have these four fundamentals, right? And again, we will see in the next couple of slides and throughout the discussion how we can intervene these concepts together to come up with a great story. Now, before I deep dive into that particular part, let me show an example of a beautiful story that has been created on National Geographic. And the story is all about just one number. It has only one number, which is the number for the number of death from COVID-19 in the US. If I scroll down, this speaks about the emotion. There are these many minutes in a year, that's one COVID-19 death per minute for almost an entire year, right? If I scroll down further, it says if someone creates a line of cascades laid from end to end, the number is equivalent to the top number, right? The number of death. This will be a stretch for 645 miles, which is huge. We are speaking about the volume of this particular number, right? And then the list goes on. Then we are speaking about the number of names which you can write on the memorial wall. We are speaking about how many cooks we have in the country. So it would be equal to nearly all the fast food cooks in the country. So you can assume the intensity of COVID, right? So here is how we are playing with emotions. And again, we are driving a great story with just one number. And the story goes on, right? So just one example which I felt was very impactful. And again, how smartly the user have created a good story, a huge long story, a very impactful story with just one number. I'll come back to my slides. So here are the points where we go into the storytelling part now. Okay. If you follow LinkedIn, or you must have been reading a couple of books, or you must be following a couple of blogs, right? There are lots of suggestions in the world which speaks about how to become a great storyteller. There are great books. There are people who are very vocal about this particular subject. And as per my experience, I have collected a couple of points, and I thought that maybe this one, as me as a storyteller, right? I should keep them in these particular 5 buckets only. Okay. The first bucket is knowing your audience, which is a very important part. Second thing, knowing the purpose. The third thing being keeping the report or the dashboard interesting. Fourth point is keeping it simple, and the fifth point is keeping it correct. Okay. I believe whatever you read or whatever you find on internet, more or less that falls under one of these 5 buckets only. And let's explore this bucket one by one. The first and very important thing is knowing your audience. And if you read the line on the top, it says, people ignore designs that ignore people, which means if you ignore the target audience, right, the intended audience of a report or a dashboard, for sure, the intended audience will also ignore that report, because that's not meant for their purpose. That's not meant for their usage, right? It's not customized, it's not personalized, and that's why the people who ignore design, the designs to ignore such people. Okay. Now, on that note, I believe you keep the stories simple. Okay. Don't assume that they are relevant to the user. Okay. And to ensure that you have that particular point checked, you speak to the end user, right? You speak to the end user and customize the story according to the audience. Now, this is very important, especially when you are developing a dashboard, right? Because here are the 3 points, and I'll speak about how these points are important from the user perspective. Now, the first point says understand the persona, so user type. You should know about their interests, their business requirement. It's a very important point, because one KPI might be important for one customer, but it might not be important for the other customer, right? That's a very important point. Second thing, you should check their analytical maturity. I have experience working with people who are very comfortable with bar chart and pie charts only. And I've also worked with customers, with clients who are very comfortable with some high-end chart, which includes some complex God charts, some Sankey charts, some radar charts, and couple of other complex charts, right? So they know what are sunburst chart, what is a rank chart, what to say, a God chart or maybe a complex cluster chart. They know all these things, right? And that's why it's very important to understand the analytical maturity of the user. Then you should also consider their mode of consumption. A lot of time people use the report not on the desktop but maybe on the handheld devices. In that point of time, it's very important to consider that point so that you can design the layout of that particular dashboard, and also you can customize the navigation so that those should be easy for someone to be used on the handheld devices. So these are a couple of things I believe are very important to understand even before creating the dashboard. We will be getting into the dashboard creation part very soon, but again, I believe these are some basic fundamentals which are important, right? Once we know the audience, right, we know for whom we are designing the report or a dashboard, then we should focus on knowing the purpose. Now I know I'm designing a report for a particular manager or maybe for a particular person or supervisor, right? Then I should know that whether he wanted to explore the data or he wanted me to inform him with couple of insights, right? For any kind of report or dashboard in general, we should know the goal, whether my report is going to explore, inform, educate, entertain, or engage. That's a very important point, right? Now, when I'm checking my storyline could be kind of an operational dashboard which speaks about some operational matrices. It is meant basically for lower management, where we have a lot of transitional information, lot of charts, tables, pie charts, bar chart. And again, it sets a dashboard which has a lot of visualizations, right? So that a person can do a lot of analysis and can bring some up and can check the updates on the daily basis, right? On a daily, weekly, or a monthly, those kind of basis, right? So for any real-time decision making, we usually use the operational dashboard. On the other hand, we have a couple of dashboards which are analytical and tactical dashboard, which are little complex and meant for the middle management. And on top of that, we have a third category of dashboard, very customized dashboard, and we are calling them strategic dashboard. They are a little complex. I call them complex because when we are creating something for the very senior management, right? And I've recently created one. There are basically two requirements. One is they require the dashboards to be super fast because they might be opening the dashboard in a meeting with other stakeholders and all, and they want everything super fast. Now, on one hand, when they need something super fast, on the other hand, they need a lot of data, a lot of aggregated data, and they wanted to just slice and dice anything by anything, and they wanted to see the sales number, they wanted to see the finance number, they wanted to see the inventory number, the HR numbers, everything, because we are creating something for taking a strategic decision, and when we are combining huge data, right? On that note, the performance definitely goes for a toss, and on the other hand, the user is looking for a super fast dashboard, and that's why they're a little complex. We need to choose the navigations, the visualizations very smartly, and that's what and when these such dashboards are used by the the senior managers, they are meant for taking strategic decisions on the basis of the insight what we generate on the dashboards. So choosing a storyline is very important. Now, in one other session, one of the participants have asked me, what if I'm creating a generic dashboard, right, which could be used by any one of them, anyone from a lower, senior, or middle management? So the answer is you create personas within a particular dashboard or report, right? You create first page, which speaks about the numbers at large. It speaks about the summarized number, the main KPIs, the highlights, and then it allows you to deep dive into level 2 and level 3 of information. So a senior suit member may be coming to the first page only. He will track the KPIs, track the numbers, and that's all. He'll not deep dive on the further pages, right? But on the other hand, a person from a middle management or lower management category might be coming to the level 2 and level 3 pages of the dashboard as well. Okay. That's how maybe you can keep the dashboards separate, meant for separate audience. Maybe you can have a one generic dashboard too, depending upon whatever the business requirement you have. Now, once you have the storyline, once you have the goal, now you again start speaking to the customer, create some wireframe, get them reviewed from the, and this is a very iterative process. You create some wireframe, you get that reviewed from level 1 manager, level 2 manager, and again, that's how you end up into having one particular finalized wireframe, a signed off wireframe, and you start creating a dashboard accordingly, right? On that note, when you are creating such wireframes, it's very important to understand what you are measuring, right? So you always measure a right metric with the help of a right chart. I'll not be getting deep into the uses of charts and visualizations because that's a very different topic altogether, requires again a significant time to get into each and every visualization, speaking about them do's and don'ts. I'll try to touch, if time permits, I'll try to touch a couple of the points, but then again, that's a very huge topic in itself, right? So here in the scope of today's discussion, I'm just saying, choose a right metric, understand whether your KPI or your KRI is positive, is negative, represent it accordingly on the dashboard, and then again, represent it using a right chart. I believe you must have seen, if you find it on Google, you must be seeing, or you must have already seen, there are different categories where you know what are the charts being used for distribution, what are the charts being used for composition, for correlation, and for a couple of other points, right? So we have those things available on internet. Now, once we have gone through these 2 points, right? First, knowing the audience, and second thing, knowing the purpose. Now we are at a stage where we have the wireframe ready. Okay, so you have the full understanding of the audience for whom you are developing the dashboard, and you have a full confidence on what you are developing in the report or a dashboard, right? That's where you get into the other 3 components of dashboard designing, about the storytelling, right? Which is all about keeping it interesting, keeping it simple, and keeping it correct. Now, on that note, when you say keeping it interesting, I believe I have shown you an example in the beginning itself, right? One example from National Geography, where they have brought a lot of elements, right, in a single story. They address the attention part, they speaks about the problem, it somewhere it also instills the curiosity, excitement, fear, revelation, resolution, a lot of things in a single story only, right? I believe more or less you will be doing the same thing in your report and dashboard as well, right? You are touching all these concepts in one other way, right? Through some data, through some insights, through some text, some narratives, you should touch ideally all these points, right? You show the change with time, you show comparison, you show composition, distribution, correlation, and through those particular elements only, you should be able to create a great story. Now, second point, when you have the things in place, you have the charts and visualizations in place, use the inbuilt native capabilities of the BI tool. Okay, in our scenario, if it's Power BI, we have to ensure that the things are properly sorted, right? We should have the filtering done, right? You should have all the proper set of filters on the dashboard. Either you keep them on the visualization side only, on the canvas, or maybe you keep them on the filter pane, right? Depending upon what choice, what preference the user have, right? And that's where I said in the beginning only, it's very important for you to know the audience. There are a couple of audience which are addicted to that kind of ribbon only, the ribbon with a lot of filters on the top. There are a couple of people who keep the filters on the right hand side or on the left hand side as per the organizational norms, right? So you should be understanding those things as well, right? Before even creating the wireframe or dashboard, right? So that's very important. You should be leveraging the inbuilt capabilities of Power BI, but at the same time, you're also respecting the kind of the visual element the user is comfortable with, right? You also provide them the what if analysis, drill down, drill through kind of things. Now, I believe you people must be aware of these kind of terminologies, like what is drill down, what is drill through. I'll be jumping into that thing also if required. But then again, if you see, these are the components that are there in Power BI, and you should be smartly using these techniques, right? You should be letting the user know that these capabilities are available in Power BI. In fact, you have another thing, right? Q&A. So where you can let the user write something, and again, he can just translate his natural language queries into some insights, into some visualizations and all. Okay. So those are very important points you should consider while keeping the reports or dashboard interesting. Now on top of this, if you see, a lot of times I've seen people, they use these things, they have something filtered, they have enabled the what if analysis, they have enabled the drill down or drill through, but then again, they have too many visualizations on the chart or maybe in the whole report or dashboard, right? In such cases, I believe the user, and I have seen it, in fact, so I've seen users who miss this kind of insight just because simply they can't just right click on each and every chart to check whether it has a drill through option enabled or not. And in such cases, I believe our responsibility is to explicitly mention that this visualization or this particular tile on the dashboard has a capability to drill down or to drill through. Okay. So I believe drill down is obvious because you get a plus icon there. But I believe for the drill through, for a couple of other things, if you have a customized tooltip, in such cases, I believe it's very important to provide that information. Okay. And that's where the third point comes into picture, right? You should provide the context. You should explicitly provide information in the form of legends, tooltips, text, caveats, user guides. And when you provide this information, I believe they help the user a lot, right? In exploring that report or a dashboard and then using the maximum and then utilizing the maximum, what you say, benefit of whatever effort you have done for them, right? So that's very important. On the other note, I believe, whatever we discussed so far, right, that was all about the capabilities of Power BI. But again, if I speak about some specific things, right, what you can do to make it more interesting. So I have an example here now. So if you read the last point, it says numbers are meaningless without context, right? And I have an example here, right? If you see, I'm speaking about one FI Outlook. Now for a couple of users, in fact, for the business user, they may or may not be aware of the word FI Outlook, right? So in such cases, I believe it's my responsibility to create an information icon here, and on the tooltip, I can provide the definition for FI Outlook, okay? And then I have a number, right? When I have this particular number, I believe it makes more sense. So this was my initial screen where I have a vague number, which is 234523. But then again, when I represent it in a slightly different way, it makes more meaning, right? Now I'm saying I have FI Outlook. It's in USD, okay? That information was missing in the earlier representation. And then I'm saying it's 234.5K. The numbers remain same, but the presentation changes, okay? Now, say for example, I'm creating this particular dashboard for a CXO, right? And then again, I don't only wanted to provide him this particular number, but I also wanted to show him that where our company stand in the market. So maybe I can show something like this, where we have the 4 competitors, okay? We stand on the third point. Now, logically, I have sorted this in the alphabetical order so that it should be always easier to read. And then when we are standing right now on the third place, right? So that's where we can compare that we have a number, which is our company's FY Outlook, financial year outlook, which is this number. But then again, is this good or bad when compared to market? I have that particular context right now. Okay. Now there's again one possibility. Now, although I might be this one, if you compare in this particular graph itself, I'm at the lowest of the 4, right? Lowest of the other 3. But then again, I'm not sure whether that was my target. I might be a player who have just entered into that particular market. Say, for example, I'm a electric vehicle manufacturer. I just ventured into China, right? And that's why my sales might be less. But then again, is it more or less from my target? Could be a very different story altogether, okay? And if I wanted to bring that particular context to in this particular tile itself, then the visualization might look something like this, okay? So this particular representation says I have a target line now. So I'm not at par the other competitors which are there in the market, but at the same time, I'm also not meeting my own targets, right? Now, this is one piece of information, a great insight, but if I add another point to it, which says I'm not meeting my target, but then I'm missing my target from 17.8%. And now I believe this is a great insight, right? You are providing everything to the user in a single shot, okay? And that's where I feel that you should be focusing on a lot of aspects and again trying to keep the things simple yet impactful to it on your report or dashboard. Now, this could have been my target, one particular tile on the dashboard. If I create 5 such more tile, that gives a complete health of the organization to a CXO member, right? So that's how you create impact with the stories, what you create. Now comes the next point, right? A very important point, which says you should always keep the report simple and you should always keep it clean, okay? On that note, I believe you all, in case if you all are developing reports and dashboard, this all must be very obvious point to you. But during the development, whenever we are in the development mode, we tend to miss these fundamentals, right? They are the ones which are very basic, very important, and that's why I believe you may use this particular slide as a checkpoint to ensure that whatever you have. Wherever you develop something, at the end of the development, you should be just having this particular checklist checked so that you have things in place, right? And you don't miss anything during the development. The first point says be very clear and concise, okay? You first summarize and then you elaborate. In fact, I have always followed a particular rule which says a 5 by 5 by 5 rule, which says you can keep 5 elements on top. Now there is nothing hard and fast. You can keep 6 or you can keep 4 also. But just for being fancy, I call it 5 by 5 by 5 rule. Okay. You should be having the 5 KPIs or the key numbers on top. You should be having 5 more visualization supporting those particular KPIs or those numbers to create a great narrative. So that covers the 5 into 5 kind of combination. Okay. Now, once you have this 5 by 5 kind of combination, 5 numbers or metrics on the top, followed by 5 visualization, which supports the top numbers, right? And again, that allows the user to slice and dice the numbers by anything. I believe a great story is one which allows the user to narrow down to answer of any questions on that data in just 5 steps, maximum 5 steps, right? So say, for example, if I create a dashboard, which has only one page, so 5 numbers on top, 5 visualization supporting those numbers. I need the dashboard to be developed in such a way that with just 5 interactions, right? Those interactions could be filter, it could be a cross filter, it could be some what if, or maybe some kind of drill down, some kind of drill through. But I should be able to narrow down to any level of information and I should be able to get answer to any question on that data in those 5 steps. And that should be the ideal check for a very good dashboard or very good report. Okay. So that's where the 5 by 5 by 5 rules comes into picture. Okay. And as I've said, there's nothing hard and fast. You can just go with your own combinations. Now, when you keep it clear and concise, I believe you should also do not bring too much information, because when you bring too much information into the dashboard, it dissolves the key insight somewhere. And I'll show you a couple of examples very soon, right? How these things get dissolved when you bring a lot of elements on the dashboard. As I've said in the beginning too, you should highlight or annotate the core information or core insight the way I've done it here, right? So this is one particular on the left hand side, what you see here, where I'm hovering my mouse, right? So if you see here, we have the screen from the earlier slide itself, but just that I have extended that particular this one visualization with some kind of insight, right? I have this kind of insight here, and then again I have added a caveat too. So these are the kind of things I believe you should do, right? When it comes specifically to the data, I believe you should maintain consistent formatting throughout the dashboard. And let's tackle all these things one by one, okay? Whenever it comes to numbers, you should provide units, right? If you see in the beginning, we haven't provided the unit. here on this particular thing, right? But when you add unit to it, right, you are saying that the numbers in USD, right? And then we have aggregation level. This adds a lot of meaning to the dashboard. Okay. So you provide unit. You need to let the user know whether something is in kg, something is in meter, something is in feet, something is in dollar, or which particular dollar. It could be Singapore dollar, it could be US dollar, or it could be Australian dollar, it could be anything, right? So you need to provide that particular context to the user. Okay. So even without the user going to this particular thing, the information icon and reading through the definition, I believe the thing should be obvious. And that's where I said in the beginning, storytelling is all about how you encourage the pre-attentive way of processing the information, right? You're just passing some explicit information to the brain so that even before looking at the number and before trying to digest information, the information already been passed. If someone sees a dollar, they know yes, some what you say, some amount number is coming on my way, right? If they see something in time, so they know yes, this is all about something about time, right? So you should be leveraging those kind of features, right? Then you maintain the aggregation, let the user know whether something is in K, something is in M, like in thousands, in millions, and you maintain the same thing throughout the complete dashboard. Okay. On top of that, whenever you are having this number, always ensure that you have a proper rounding, right? A consistent rounding throughout the dashboard. Either keep it at 2 places of decimal, 1 place of decimal. That thing should be consistent, right? For date, just maintain a specific date format, right? In US, we have different date format. In India, we have different date format. There are two different people have different ways of writing the date. Okay, so you should be explicitly mentioning the date format somewhere. Okay. So it could be either something very obvious to the user, or maybe if you have used something, then again this particular dashboard is being used by users across different regions or geographies, right? Then you should be keeping something a caveat on the top saying that the date format is in this particular thing, right? And that's where this thing is very important, right? You are just adding more context to the dashboard, right? And that's where the third point comes into the picture, the text. Okay. So you just group the similar text. You say, for example, I've seen examples where while entering the data manually, or maybe while capturing the data from different data sources, you get something like this, right? So in the data you have US, in the same column you have USA, and in the same column you have America as well. So ideally it makes more sense to group such text, right? So that's all from the data perspective. Data validation, data cleaning is a very important and integral step of data analytics, and ultimately an important step as part of the storytelling. Now you also provide the clear headers and label. I believe whenever you create some bar charts or pie charts, Power BI generates a default text or a title. You should avoid using those default text unless and until they are already relevant. But then again, you should be formatting. At the same time, you should be changing the text, which is more in line with the business requirement, right? So that's a very important step and very important check, by the way, okay, at this stage while we are creating the dashboard. Now, another important point, apart from just checking the numbers, dates, and text, is that you should sort the data wherever possible. If it's a bar chart, preferably you should always sort it in the descending order, okay, either a bar chart or a column chart. Same way, if you have a pie chart, also by default itself, it's always sorted in the descending order, but you also just doubly ensure that it's always sorted in the descending order. Okay, people don't read it wrong, so you should ensure that. Now, on the other note, I believe you should be also logically sorting the values. Sometimes I feel that the things are alphabetically sorted, okay, and that makes little sense when it's alphabetically sorted. So you should always prefer doing some manual sorting also if required, and then I believe you know the different techniques of sorting the things manually in Power BI or in any other tool. Okay. Now, if you remember in the one of the earlier slides, I mentioned about personalization. Okay, and that's where it comes into picture, where if you know that the user already has some predefined preferable values for which he wanted to see the data. Say, for example, you have created a dashboard which could be used across regions, but then you want that, you know that most of the users are from US, right? So it makes huge sense to keep the default filter being set as US. because 90% of your audience is US based only, right? In case if there is any other person visiting the dashboard, I believe he just have to he just have to clear the filter, and he can select the country to which he belong or he or she belong, and then he can analyze the information, right? But then again, you should be having some pre-selected set of filters. Either you can right, publish in case if there is any other person visiting the dashboard, report default state of that report or dashboard, or maybe you can let the user know that they also have an option to bookmark somewhere on the Power BI service, and they can have the same representation for them, right? So they can customize their own dashboards with their preferred set of filters and all, right? So that's very important. Now on this note, it's all about data. Okay, we spoke about how you represent the numbers, how you represent dates, text, how you provide some very useful context through headers, through labels, through legends and all. We also spoke about how you sort the data so that it's easy to read. We also spoke about how we filter the data so that it's easy to comprehend. It should be readily comprehensible, right? So the user doesn't have to select something and then again like waste 1 or 2 minutes just in selecting and getting into the place where I believe he should have been in the first place itself, right? So that's all about data part, right? The another phase of this coin is a design. Okay, so once we have tackled the data part, I believe we should move to the design part. Okay, on the design part, again same thing only. I believe the first 2 points remain same only. You should be very clear and concise, and then again you should not bring a lot of elements to ensure that you don't dissolve the key insights. Okay, so on the design part, I believe the important point is you don't overdo. Okay, there is something called as Gestalt principle, where you keep the things in proximity. You ensure that you smartly use the shapes, the colors, the spaces, right, the alignments, so that you have a great story, right, on top of that. And I'll be getting into that part soon, right? So not overdoing is a very important element of designing. I believe a lot of people have the tendency where they just keep adding elements to the report for the sake of nothing, right? They believe that they are making the report beautiful by adding couple of elements, but that always have a negative impact on this one, on the user front, right? So you should avoid that. Also, as I've said, too many visual, they always distract the attention from the key insight. We should avoid them. Now, getting into the specific detail, I believe the way we spoke about data on the design part 2, we should maintain the consistency in terms of layouts, in terms of themes, fonts, colors, icon. They all should be consistent throughout the complete dashboard. Okay. On the text part, I believe you should have a consistent style, size, and color of the fonts throughout the complete dashboard. Preferably, whenever you are creating certain charts, you keep the labels little. This one, say for example, if you're keeping a label as calibre 11, right? The axis label on the other side should be somewhere around calibre 10. Okay, and again a lighter shade of black and all. Okay. You don't use heavy axis labels and all. I believe those report doesn't look good. You also avoid over labeling, right, at any point of time. And I believe those are the points you should consider from the text point of view. Okay, so just make the tooltips, legends, labels, or wherever you use a text, it should be consistent. It should be neat and clean only. Okay. On the colors part, I believe it's very obvious that if you use too many colors, right, this one, the dashboard or report looks like a rainbow. Okay, you should avoid that kind of tendency. Also, prefer contrasting color. I believe people sometimes they use minimal color, but they don't use the contrasting color. That's again very important point. Okay. On the third point, I believe you should be very careful about the usage of red, amber, and green shades, especially the red, amber, green color, as well as the shades of red, amber, and green. Okay, because these colors are meant for a specific reason, right? There are some symbolic colors. Red always means danger. Green always means good to go. Okay. So when you use these such colors in your bar charts or pie charts, I believe for the users, right, who are already have this tendency to consider those colors as some indicative colors, I believe they get confused, right? They don't know whether you are intentionally making the bar chart or pie chart green, or it's just that you have used that particular color theme. Okay, so you should be very specific about those things. Also, you should sometimes consider the color which are suitable for a colorblind audience, so especially when you're creating an operational dashboard which might be used which might be used by a huge audience, right? So you've created something which you know that will be going running through a lot of audience, so you ensure that you use the color which are suitable for the colorblind audience as well. Okay? So I believe these are the points we should be considering on the texts and on the color side. Now, another very important part of the reporting layout and the reporting formatting and design is that you should manage the spaces very smartly. Okay. And if you see by now, all these points are interconnected to each other. Okay. If I jump to the first point where I said know the audience, right? So I'm at the same stage right now. Okay. You should be speaking to the audience, understanding what they need, what kind of color they prefer, what kind of charts they prefer and all, right? And then again, on that note, from the beginning itself, I believe you should think like a designer or an architect, right? You should prioritize what element you want to keep on the dashboard. Whenever you have a dilemma, if something can be represented in way 1 as well as in way 2, right? Either you get that reviewed from your supervisor, from your colleague, or someone internal to your organization, or on an alternate note, it's always a great thought that you should, I believe you must be having some daily catch-ups with the managers and all from the client side. So you get them reviewed that time as well. Okay, it's always good to show options to the client that speaks about your capability, your command on the tool, on the analytical side, and at the same time that also earns your respect because you are showcasing all the possibilities to the client. Okay, so but yes, those things should be done in a very early phase of the report development so that you get a sign off on the wireframe, and only then you start working on the dashboard. Otherwise it ends up into a lot of rework. Okay, on the space management part, I believe once we have prioritized the dashboard elements, you keep them neatly. Okay, you avoid the horizontal and vertical scrolling throughout the report on a particular page, or maybe say within a visualization. I've seen people who just create some visualization and then again they have a horizontal bar or a vertical bar, which I believe could have been minimized by a couple of different formatting techniques that we have in Power BI. Okay, maybe you can reduce the space between the bars, maybe you can make the bars a little thinner, maybe you can change the font size, a lot of things you can do, so that you don't have a very small, just for the sake of small point, you have a horizontal or vertical scroll within a particular tile. And on the same note, I believe a horizontal scroll on a particular page is okay, but then you avoid the vertical scroll. Okay, you always avoid the vertical scroll because that makes no much sense to the user, right? To scroll both horizontal and vertical to get it to one particular tile or one particular insight. Okay. Now, in case you have the visual elements which are related to each other, say for example, you have a lot of KPIs on the dashboard. Couple of the KPIs are weekly, couple of KPIs are monthly, and couple of them are yearly, right? It always makes a lot of sense to group the daily ones on one side, weekly ones on one side, and the yearly ones on the one side. Say for example, you have a couple of KPIs belong to sales, couple of others belong to HR, and others belong to finance, right? Again, makes a lot of sense. Maybe you can create a kind of a small border outside them, or maybe you can just highlight with some background color. You do a couple of things. Okay, and we'll see if we have some examples like that, right? So you smartly just keep such examples here or there, and then just you ensure that you group the information together. Okay, so that you have the elements, right? And then at the end you align all the elements neatly so that you have everything in place, and then that's how you create the complete dashboard. Okay, so I'll take a pause at this point of time, and maybe I'll jump to one particular deck. So on the storytelling part, I believe different people have different perspectives. Okay, so when different people have different perspectives, it's always a great opportunity to learn from others. Okay, personally, I follow a lot of I get a lot of inspiration from a lot of submissions for the data visualization challenge that we have online on LinkedIn or maybe on other platforms. Okay, so there's a lot of visualization challenges where people keep posting their their reports, their dashboards, their visualizations, and then again you get a lot of inspiration. It always encourages you to see what other person have developed, and you should challenge yourself that how he or she have developed that particular part, right? So that brings a lot of what you say information to you, a lot of learning to you, and then again this one that should be one practice that you all people should follow. Okay, there are books in market, there are blogs available online, offline, right? Some huge content available. So I believe those are the inspirations. And since we have spoken about all these things, I believe I'm left with the last deck only, which says keep it correct. But then on this particular note, where we have just discussed, right, how to keep the things simple, keep it clean on both on the data side as well as on the design side, I believe I'll jump directly into the submissions for one of the latest data visualization challenge, a very popular one, I believe, on LinkedIn, which is Maven Analytics. They didn't publish anything in the month of January, but the last one was in December. So I'll be jumping to the couple of submissions. Now the intention is not to, not for sure, not to pinpoint the mistakes what some person have done, right? But I just wanted to know what are good things someone have done, what could have been done in a different way, right? All these are personal opinions only, and I just wanted you to give some real-time example, and that's why I just wanted to jump there only. Okay, I believe Dhruvin, that's okay, right?
Yes, absolutely. Feel free to.
Sure, thank you. Okay, so I have these submissions from December month. Okay, now if I consider, and there are 150 slides by the way. Okay, I'll try to cover as many as possible, but just that I believe I just wanted to give you a real-time example of whatever we have discussed so far. Okay, now this one is a very great example of visualization. Okay, it speaks about the history, how Croatia have earned third place, group stage, and different places in this one historically, right? A very great visualization. I believe they should have done it as a rank chart maybe, so that we should know you were at the third stage, then you went to the group stage, then to the you not qualified, and all some up and downs that might have created more impact, right? But still a great visualization. Okay, this speaks about the key stats for the top goal player, top performer in the in top performance versus the countries, that kind of information. But somewhere I felt a little distracting part in this visualization is you have the captain, right? And then we have the win percentage immediately next to that particular thing, right? Now, for a person who is familiar to football, I believe it's very fair that you can't have a win percentage for a particular captain or a particular person, right? It's a win percentage for the complete country, which is Croatia, in the scope of this particular visualization. And that has been very beautifully highlighted on the top itself, right? But still, I feel there could have been some space in between which could have done something a little better, okay? The one on the bottom, all these triangles what they've created is overdoing all the visualization and could have been avoided, okay? Otherwise, a great theme, the way the colors have been used, the way the story have been used and all, consistent use of fonts and colors throughout the complete dashboard, and that makes it a great visualization, a piece of great visualization. Now, second one, okay. This speaks about Netherlands, and then again, one very obvious observation in this particular chart is the use of the color, okay. On an orange background, if you are using orange themes or maybe orange color to segregate the values, right? I believe if you see, look at the example here. I believe this is a great example of how the information has been grouped, okay? But I believe a little contrasting background could have made a much bigger difference. Especially, orange bar chart on an orange background is always a no. And again, if you see here, so whenever you have the white font and all, I believe it should have been a little darker shade of orange, or could have been some other different subtle color, maybe some white or gray, or maybe those kind of color. I believe those might have made this particular report much better, right? But a great example. And if you see example, here is how they have contrasted the information here. Looks like a great background, and then again you have good insights, right? But again, at the same point of time, I believe orange shades on orange background are not appealing at this point of time, okay? And this could have been done in a different way. in this particular report, okay, in this particular piece of visualization. But otherwise, great information, lot of visualization done in a very neat way, okay. Now, one thing, when I was just doing it a couple of minutes back only, so I thought maybe I should even go through this particular thing, right? Now, if you observe, to me, if I look at this particular chart, right, there are a couple of bar charts, but then again in 1974, 1978, 1998 and all, there are no indications about the size of this particular bar, right? I don't know what this bar represent, okay? In 1974, they were runner-up for sure, and again we are speaking about Netherlands only, very beautifully highlighted on the top itself, but then again I don't know what this particular bar represent, okay? Dhruvin, you have any idea? I mean, is that information obvious from this particular chart?
No clue.
No clear, right? So I believe these are the points which are very important, where you need to provide the context to the user, right? If you're creating a bar chart, there has to be a context what the bar chart represent, okay? So those I believe are the important points to consider, right? Otherwise, a great piece of visualization here too, again. Okay. I'll jump to the next one. Okay. Now a great use of color, okay? I preferably use the white color only, okay? So very good use of white color, and then we have a same color, like a font color, same theme been used throughout the dashboard. And now here, if you see beautifully, I can read the radar chart, right? So it's easy for me. And then again, you have a proper arrow which says from group stage to round 16 to quarterfinal to semi-final to the final. And this use of just one arrow, right? This one particular visual element what they've used, but this has huge impact even for the user who doesn't knows about football. And now this was the point which I made in the first submission, right? If you see here, now it says third place, group stage, not qualified, group stage. This is a great visualization, right? But still, I feel that this visualization, right, just one chart, right? This makes huge impact on the user, okay? It's very easy for me, right, without even knowing about football, for me to know that this is what these stages are, right? You move from the group stage to this one, to this, to this. And then again, we have some particular thing which represent that when you were at group stage, then how many times you went to round 16, how many times you moved to round this one, quarterfinal. So the number of times you reached final were very less. And again, most of the number of times you reached quarterfinal only. So this was the area where you moved, but then again you didn't made it to semi-final and final much of the time, right? So a great visualization, by the way. Okay. Then we speak about the World Cup places through years, and again 1996 is somewhere where they won, right? So without even knowing the information, I'm not reading the text, right? But just by looking at the visualization itself, right, I was able to notice that, and this is a great way of using J-SALT principles, right? You just highlight the information, at the same time you represent that something has happened, right? It's immediately grabbing my attention, right? And then we have this thing also indicated here as final winner. So although without that too, this was very obvious, but a great piece of this one narration at the bottom, right? How many times they went to group stage, how many times to round 16, quarterfinal, semi-final, and final, right? So great visualization, by the way, okay? And then very neatly, they have grouped the information. On the one side, they are speaking about the historical information, right? The way to this one, way to World Cup, but now this is the way to Qatar, okay? So it's speaking about the current situation, maybe recent build to Qatar. They are speaking about the World Cup squads, and again, a lot of this one young prospects. Great visualization, I believe, and this was shortlisted too by Mahajan because of a lot of obvious reasons. Okay, so great visualization. But then again, I believe at one point here. I'm not sure what this particular bar chart is doing here at the bottom, right? So I believe that's again a human tendency to just overdo visualization, and that's where I feel we should avoid this particular tendency, okay? I believe the image of the leader, of the captain, I believe that should have been done magic without having that particular thing on the bottom, right? So maybe you should avoid that, okay? But great visualization, okay? If I jump to the next one, again, a great piece of visualization, very neatly, they have segregated the information on one side, which speaks about one set of information. This is information for Brazil, great way how they have spoke about the golden period, right? And again, the international title, something like that. And again, they're the star players, right? we have the players, we have their era, then again some insights about that. A great kind of a mix. It's a mix of insightfulness, mixed. It has information, it has insight at the same time. It is something where you can take some couple of takeaways from this particular report, right? So a great piece of visualization. The only thing I believe which is more in this particular report or this particular visualization is huge text. Okay, so I believe some text could have been avoided. Okay, so when you say football is most important sport in Brazil, often referred as this one, I believe this is a little extra piece of information which could have been avoided, which might have provided you more real estate on the dashboard, and then you should have jumped directly into the insights only rather than providing some text and all. Okay, but a great visualization piece here. Okay. Now this one is a very neat and clean way of representing the information. You again see very neatly someone have indicated some information, right? So when the Japan was a co-host with this one, and again they reached around 16 and all. So that was a stage. Then again we are speaking about the Japan only, I believe, the samurai blue. Okay, so that's the point. And again here we have the Japan logo, but this one maybe for a different user it could have. This was not very obvious to me in the first go. The way it was obvious in the previous visualization, whether it was for Netherlands, for England, I believe here it took a second for me to understand this was for Japan. Okay, so maybe that could have been little more obvious. Okay, so or maybe they could have used the Japan colors only somewhere here. So a shade of blue, and again with the different colors and all. I believe you should have used some red color or maybe some white color shade and all. That would have made more impact, and again that would have used the pre-attentive way of using the human brain. Okay, that's what. But then again, very smartly they have just done this thing. They're speaking about the wins and the draws and all. I believe the wins could have been done in a different color. Okay, because they are win. So maybe the brightest color could have been win, then followed by the draws, followed by the losses. Okay, so the losses could have been either darkest color or maybe the grayed out color. Okay, and the percentage wins and dates could have been a different color, right? We are speaking about the percentage wins, right? So not a good use of red color, I believe. Okay, so because we are speaking about the winning percentage, so that could have been represented different formation. Again, here the only thing which I believe is the kind of the triangles what they've used on the background. They are a little distracting for me at this point of time, because if you see here a lot of triangles at the background, right? And again, if you see this information and all, now you might be thinking that at this point of time, Gaurav, you are just like criticizing each and every dashboard. But then again, I'm just sharing my personal observations, because I've seen when you take a printout of such reports, right? At that point of time, especially for the senior management or maybe for other users, this is a little distracting, right? Because when they're taking the printout, there are some patches of black and white, because not every time we take a color printout, right? So whenever someone is rushing for a meeting, if he takes a printout of your report or a dashboard, and if he's going to present that particular thing, I believe these three things are a big consideration in such cases. So that's why if those can be avoided, so you should prefer avoiding them. Okay, so it's a great entry. Now this speaks about the South Korea, a very obvious title. Okay, so and again they have the visualizations, the colors been used. Now if you see the South Korea, I believe somewhere they are using this particular theme, right? Red and blue. A very smart usage of those particular color. Okay, win, losses, draws, and win rate. Okay, again the win been represented in the red color, could have been avoided, but I believe I'll go with the theme only. I'll give some points for the themes because they've used particular theme. That's how they're going. A very beautiful way how they have just segregated the information, the World Cup history, the performance, the squad, a very small visualizations, a lot of information in just one particular visualization only. Okay, so great visualization. Now here comes another one for Spain. Okay, so good use of color. Again, they are going with the color of their flag only. Some great visualization, great numbers. I believe if the theme itself is yellow and red, then it makes a lot of sense, right? So because you have everything in yellow and red. So now, it's not obvious that for a user that he should be thinking red is a danger only. Okay, so they know the theme itself is red and green. But the only limitation of using such particular themes in the professional environment is that now if you wanted to highlight something, right, something like this 20%, right, now here if you see there is some kind of conditional formatting what they have used. Okay, The win percentage was 83, 50, 20. This has been used red intentionally to indicate that this one, it was the lowest win rate. Okay. And that too, a penalty success rate was 59%. So these are the areas what you wanted to highlight. Okay. So although they got highlighted very beautifully because of the white, this one, the white kind of like this one, the background, what they use, this one, the developer have used, right? But otherwise, it could have been a disaster for this particular report, right? The information will get lost. You have put a lot of effort in ensuring that you have that particular thing highlighted, but then again, it might get lost in this particular thing because the entire dashboard itself is in the red and green color, this one, right? So maybe this one, those are important consideration. But neatly formatted, if you see, everything is properly highlighted, properly, neatly arranged, right? A great layout here at this point of time, okay? Now here, again, a great visualization in line with the flag of France and all, but then again, a very dark theme, okay? On the dark theme, whenever you are having these black spots and all, I believe these colors could have been little brighter, okay? The numbers could have been just the numbers on the top, followed by the category, okay? That could have been done better. And then we have rest of the chart. I believe the white could have been more white. This one, the shades of white could have been more, this one more lighter. So that would have made more impact. And again, that might have made the things more visible, okay? Here, I believe somewhere the user missed with this one, with the presentation and all, okay? And haven't used the face optimally, right? The another thing is that I believe I see inconsistent use of fonts, okay? Somewhere you're using a bigger font, smaller font. I believe that's the intention to highlight the information. So in the same line, you're using a different, this one, say you are using both a bold font and a simple font. You're also keeping something in italics. At the same time, you're using changing the size of the font. I believe the difficult task is having a bigger font than this one, right? Too many variation in just one particular visualization, I believe, rather than creating an impact, it creates more distraction. So I believe those kind of things could have been avoided, okay, in this visualization. I'll just touch the last one. So, and then maybe I'll stop. So Argentina, great visualization again, okay, in line with the color of Argentina flag and all. So beautiful way they have represented the information. If you see, this is the way they have smartly played around the colors, right? Again, another use of Gestalt principle. So Argentina, across the countries, they are doing a comparative analysis. At the same time, they are highlighting the position of Argentina. Same thing they have done for this particular chart, and again for this particular chart as well. Okay? So a smart use of colors and all. Okay. Then they are speaking about the historical information, about the ranking, and then again, if you see here, again they have highlighted the information, right? They are intentionally bringing the focus of the user. Although the rest of the things are grayed out, you already have the attention, but then again, adding another layer of this particular thing is always like something that you can do, right? Because you're not distracting anything from anywhere, right? It's just like you're adding another piece of information for the user, and then again, you are providing some narration, so which is a very good practice of how you should use the dashboards and all. Okay, so I believe I'll stop at this point of time. There are too many. This one would say too many submission that we had. I believe this was one of the biggest submission what Maven Analytics have got, but a great piece. I believe I'll recommend all of you to just have a look at all the visualization, what other people submit, learn from them. As I've said, there are other books, other tutorials and all, which you should prefer. So I'll leave you with that. Okay, I'll stop here. Maybe I'll jump to my last slide, which I had, and then I'll take a couple of questions if there are any. Now the very last slide says, now you have everything, right? You have everything, you have kept it simple, you have kept it interesting, but then again, you should also keep it correct, okay? Because poor designs always leads to poor insight. On that note, maybe I'll first jump to the example, and then maybe I'll jump to I'll cover what I have here, okay? There's one example which I've got here, okay? And I believe this is one particular example from one of the television itself, from one of the channel, Fox News, okay? So if you see, it speaks about the people who are on welfare versus the people with a full-time job. If I compare the visualization, then again, I believe this says the number of people on welfare are almost like 5 times of the people with a full-time job. Okay, but that's not the case. If I go with the legend, if I go with the bar size, it's almost 5%, 5 times, right? But 500 times, 500 percentage. But then again, if I go with the visualization, I believe it's a very slight difference. And this is basically because you have truncated the y-axis. Okay. Now here's the explanation for this, right? So if you see, if I compare the interest rate for 2008, 2009, 10, 11, and 12, I see a significant increase in the interest rate. Okay, it was 3.14 at this point, and now the interest rate have gone almost like 5 times or 6 times, right, in the last 4 years. But that is not the situation because we have a truncated y-axis. It starts from 3.14, whereas ideally in the ideal situations, it should have been started from 0.0 only. And if I represent the same information here, in the right hand side, now I see there are ups and downs, but a very minimal change in the interest rate, right? I believe the one on the left hand side and the one on the top are some smart ways being used by the media channel nowadays just to grab the attention and to making it a breaking news. Okay, so you should avoid doing such things in your reports or dashboard. Okay, so there is always an option in Power BI to customize the y-axis, the starting point and the end point, but you should avoid that, not to end up into creating a misleading visualization. Okay, or even if you do so for some particular purpose, I highly recommend you to put that thing as a caveat somewhere. Okay, so that's an important part. Okay, so never skip or omit any data point, right? That's the important point. Second thing is that you always avoid misleading bar chart. Instead, you should always go for the conventional zero baseline y-axis chart only. Okay, that's a very important point. Second point, I have seen people, they use misleading pie charts too. Okay, they just remove couple of things from the pie chart. Okay, and then basically the pie charts at that point of time adds or sums to 100%. It's not the fact. Okay, so if you have a lot of things on the pie chart, you combine them as others. Okay, maybe I'll take an example. I'll just put. So whenever you have a pie chart like this, where you have a lot of things, say for example, something like this. You have a pie chart where you don't want to show the small denominations of the values. Maybe you can just combine them together as others, right? And you still show the complete 100% only, rather than excluding couple of pieces or couple of data points from the visualizations. Okay, very important point. I have seen people doing that too, so I thought of like putting that in my slide. Okay. Now, at the last point, you should also avoid misleading text, right? Sometimes, as I've said in the earlier, right? I've said in the earlier this point. So Power BI usually provides you a default header or title whenever you create a pie chart or bar chart or some other chart, but you should logically change the name for those charts in line with your business context. Okay. And then again, the last point, you should avoid comparing or correlating unrelated context in the same graph. Okay. So there are a couple of examples too. I'll be sharing. There are a couple of references here. Maybe you can note them down. So you should also avoid comparing those particular kind of context where the things are not related to each other, but still you are bringing them on the same page. Okay. A beautiful and fun example which I found on the same blog only is somewhere below, where they say the correlation between, now since you have such data doesn't mean that you should present such data like this. So they are representing the correlation between the number of murders in a particular locality against the number of ice cream sold. Now these two are totally unrelated topics altogether, right? So you should not show them together. Okay. So those kind of things, right? So I believe on that note, I'll stop. Do we have any question from the audience, Dhruvin?
Yes,
Sure.
yes, Gaurav, we have some questions. Let me just bring it up here. But yeah, thank you so much for this amazing session. It's really, really uh, very helpful for audience who is building the Power BI report and how best we can incorporate this overall data storytelling. So let me just go with few questions, but before that, from Teams section, if anyone has any question, feel free to bring it up first. And meantime, I'm just checking YouTube live, and I'm just opening up some of the questions from there. So from Teams, anyone has any question, feel free to unmute yourself and ask directly. Okay, one is Sanket is asking, can you please share PDF and PowerPoint presentation? Gaurav, it's for you. Like, if you want to share it from your any of the URL, feel free to share it with the audience so that they can just use it after even after this session.
Sure, Dhruvin. After the session, I'll be sharing the PDF. Along with this, I believe I have some compilation of
Okay.
the reference resources as well. Some blogs, some books and all. I'll be sharing those as well as a complementary
Okay,
part.
perfect. The another question from YouTube Live is about the data challenges that you are talking about. Can you share couple of links related which are the data challenges that are going on at this moment and where people can explore more design created by the different people? I think that covers with the same like the PDF that you shared, but if you know, obviously the Maven data challenges we all know, but apart from that, do you have any other challenges which can be shared with the user where user can just uh, go and participate in those challenges?
Sure, I'll share that link as well.
Okay, perfect. Apart from that, let me just share a couple of insights from the YouTube live that we did. So people actually love this session and they just added the comment in the YouTube live. Apart from that, overall 197 people viewed throughout this overall streams, which is a very big number. So it really shows that how session interactive is. Apart from that, we don't have any major question. Mostly the most of the people are asking same thing, the PDF and PPT deck. So definitely we will share this with you once Gaurav provide it. I will add that in the YouTube description box. All right, so I think we are almost good with the Q&A part, Gaurav. Anything else you want to share with our audience before we wrap this up?
Sure. Just last point from my side. I believe because we have a limited time only, right? So I tried to cover the storytelling in general, how it should be, irrespective of tool, whether you're using Power BI or Tableau. I believe each tool comes with its own capabilities. So this was all about storytelling. I have another deck which speaks about say data visualization, and as I've said, this is a very different topic altogether, which speaks about how we tackle these things, right? How we tackle different charts, right? So I believe I'll start from here. Okay, so this is one particular thing which speaks about how we use a different chart, right? Bar chart, pie chart, donut chart, and there are hundreds of charts like this, right?
Correct.
This could be one particular topic at some other point of time for the discussion, focusing only on data visualization. So do's and don'ts and all. So maybe
All
that's
right.
something like
Perfect.
the audience.
That's really great, Gaurav. And actually, we would definitely want to have that. Maybe we can have some separate session on that, specifically talking about the data visualization. But definitely, it's really helpful, and we would like to have you again on Delhi Power BI user group to present this one more topic which you already ended with.
Sure, Dhruvin. Thank you so much for that.
Yep. All right. So I think we are good to wrap this up. Before we wrap, Prince, do you want to start the? Yeah, go ahead. Anyone has asked question?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
I
yes,
have a
Sanket. Yeah,
question.
go ahead.
Uh, I don't, I don't have real-time experience in Power BI, but I just want to know. Uh, I am the developer, actually .NET developer. But if I made some changes in code, so I drag them later on. So I will right click on the toys and check the view history. So I will get the old code and view edited code or edited code. But in case of Power BI visuals and dashboards, how I can get those informations? Can you please explain? Because I'm I'm new to Power BI.
Okay. Gaurav, do you want to provide any insights on that?
Sure, Dhruvin. So, Sanket, since you are new to Power BI, I believe this you need a great journey, right, to reach the level where you can create some charts and pie charts and all. Before that, I recommend you to touch some basics. Okay, there are some very good tutorials available on the official website of Microsoft. So if you go to Microsoft website for Power BI, you have a documentation. In the documentation, you have some quick guides. Okay, check those quick guides. After that, from Dhruvin, from a lot of other people who are there on this one on internet. So they have already created videos which speaks about the basic and fundamentals of Power BI. Go through those fundamentals first, and I believe at that point of time you'll be at a stage where you can just start understanding Power BI. You know what are the possibilities available in Power BI, and then if you want to replicate something, I believe your question is somewhere around replicating. Maybe if you have some already existing report created by your colleagues or maybe from your earlier friends and all, so maybe you can just start referring those reports. There are ways how you can create calculations, codes and all, but you should know how they have written it and why they have written it, right? So just rather than copying it, I believe you should know the reasons behind them, and that requires some learning, some theoretical learning and all. So and that will take time. Anything you want to add, Ruvin?
Sanket, does that okay? Uh,
Dhruvin,
does that answer your question, Sanket?
no, sir. I just want to I want to know actually how we can track the difference. Is
You mean to
old
say with
visual?
respect to
Sanket,
code,
Sanket,
right? You are
Yes.
talking about
San,
GitHub type of thing, right? Where
Right.
okay, okay. So it is like ALM capability you are talking about basically. So I have seen lots of content around internet where when we create the PBIX file, let's say they are uploading that into one of the GitHub repository, and that GitHub repository is connected with your Azure DevOps or GitHub account, and let's say if I'm making any changes, basically it tracks up those changes in form of files. So by default, if you uh, by default if we go with the GitHub scenario, basically the tracking is available. Only thing is that you need to do some sort of configuration, which I'll share you couple of links maybe even after this call. It is like just setting up the Azure DevOps or GitHub for your organization, and that can be doable. Similar like code base background from UR, where we can see the clear difference. But here the thing is that like you cannot like with code based background we can compare the code side by side, one by one, but here it's like you can see the extracted file there, but visually you can't see it. Visually it's something that when you restore the one version, you can see the whatever was done as a part of the previous update, and the new update it's something like which you always have into your Power BI file basically. That's how people are managing the DevOps for Power BI basically. Hope it gives you some clarity inside that.
Yes.
Sanket,
Yes.
Sanket.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
Sanket.
Yes.
Just to add to Dhruvin, this version controlling happens with the file base. It's not like a normal code base, but definitely if you can always do a comparison, because these are the PBIX can be converted to an XML files, and then you can check. But for that you need to be very much an expert in Power BI to understand what XML is trying to show you the differences. So there are tools that you can use it, but to see the visual of Power BI with two files, you have to download a different version and then see it on your system, comparing underscore, putting some underscore versioning. Um, Else you can do it on XML comparison, but XML comparison might not be suitable for all. It is suitable for the experts, but not for someone who is starting with Power BI initially. Okay.
Hope that gives you some clarity, Sanket.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay, and definitely I'll share some link with you. Maybe we will launch some of the things on our daily Power BI user group LinkedIn page about this question. So definitely you can go it from there. Okay, And one of the comment is also coming from YouTube Live. Use Power BI tools or tabular editor for DevOps in Power BI. So yeah, that is also one of the answer for the same question. Thanks Rajesh for adding that thing in the YouTube Live. All right. Uh, Before we wrap, anyone else has any other question, any other thought? So Prince can just start the closing ceremony of this event.
Hey, hi, Dhruvin.
Hey Aditya, yes.
Hi. Yeah, I came across the channel about 3 days back and went through a couple of videos. Great work. I learned a lot from a couple of videos. I've started as a Power BI developer,
Mm-hmm.
and I think I'll be in touch with you very often. So, just one question. So, will the recording for this session available for us?
Yes, it is already
Oh,
live. It is already live session. So even after this session, you can access the same from the YouTube, which we already distributed across all of our social media links. So you
oh,
can always have that. And we also upload the recording at the evening because some people are complaining that initial part we are not have proper audio, so we will re-upload that very soon. But even after this session, the same thing is available on YouTube by default.
great. Thanks,
Yep,
Dhruvin. Yeah, thank you.
yep, that's great. All right. So I think we are good. Yeah, thanks, Kunal, for this amazing comment. And thank you so much, Gaurav, for this amazing session on this Sunday. It's really helpful for everyone who is doing the reporting insight for the first time. So, yeah, with this, Prince, go ahead and do the closing ceremony of the session.
Yeah, thanks Gaurav for spending time with us on our monthly user group session. Hopefully, we can see you in later sessions within this year itself. Like Dhruvin said, that we will try to we'll see how we can how both our schedules can match it. Um, on another note, on the topic itself, sometimes people starts to do the technical stuff and all this stuff, but they forget the main objective of reporting. That's this is the main objective, how you can tell your story. There are multiple things, multiple options to tell your story, but to tell you the story the right way is the most important one. Covering what Gaurav you covered within the whole 1.5 hours of session, where that exactly how you can tell your story. Because I can represent, maybe a pie chart can give me a better version of the data story, but I might be doing it on a tablets matter. But that's something that people learn over a period of time, and people should start thinking like what Gaurav said, that how to go by step by approach of how you can sell your Power BI story better. Gaurav, thanks a lot. I think I enjoyed a lot of things. I learned some new factors too. I've been doing Power BI for a long time, but I can tell you I also learned something very new, how to tell the data story better and what factors should be in line with it. Thanks a lot, Gaurav. Thanks for being on Sunday morning, 9 o'clock. And in Europe, it's already 6 o'clock in the morning. So it's really really good. And I think I've seen people joining from Europe also. So that means it's a session itself is a golden in any of the reporting guy repository. Thanks a lot. Hope to see you guys all soon. Guys, we have another session. We have another boot camp next month. Hopefully, you all guys can come and join. There are very interesting sessions across the Power Platform, not only Power BI but across the Power Platform, and I think that these are the one of the very good learning sessions and a very good networking sessions as well. That's where Dhruvin and me met also 3 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said, Prince. And I can see like the analytics are 201. So it's a better start for us as a 2023 because earlier in 2022 we never received the analytics above 200, and in first session itself we have 201. I can see in YouTube live at this moment in my analytics section. So that's really amazing. And to your point, Prince, definitely we need to have one more session with Gaurav in upcoming month for specifically for the visualization part. I'm keen to see that session.
Sure, sir. Thank you so
Yeah,
much for
yeah,
this, and
totally agree.
it's an honor for me to speak again. So thank you so much, Dhruvin, for this motivation and for the support, and Prince, Abhinav, and the entire team.
Yeah, thank you so much. We are pleased to have you. Prince, anything
Thanks,
else?
thanks, Gaurav. No, guys, and I hope you guys have a great week ahead and a great start to the next week.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day ahead.
Thank
Goodbye.
you. Have a nice day, guys. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.